So I'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock and establish that we have a full quorum tonight. Thank you all for being here. And we'll do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So. I need an agenda. I grabbed the wrong one. Okay. So, can I have a motion to accept the agenda, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussions, additions? Being done, all in favor of accepting the agenda? Any opposed? Good. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of May 3rd.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any additions, corrections, comments? There being none? All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Thank you.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't
Okay,
part of this.
that's fine. A motion to approve the minutes of May 17th. Thank you, Fran. And any additions, changes, discussion? No, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I have no correspondence. So we'll take reports, so you've almost got them all colored in.
That is my tax collector's report just for the grand list of 22. We had a pretty good year. We did over 99%, and that leaves less than $100,000 in uncollected taxes on our 22 list. And this year is off to a booming start. I've never seen such eager people in my life. It's not a complaint. But it's quite opposite than what I thought it was going to be. Now, this is the first 10 days, maybe it will change, but the first 10 days have been remarkable.
Wow, so the rebound and people on strike.
It's a very interesting group of people who are paying, and they are paying for the whole year. I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but it's a fascinating study. It's not what I expected.
Well, that's great.
Thank you.
Good. And no one is here from the board, I don't think. We don't have anybody online. So, we will go to Marty and Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Hi. Just wanted to report to you all, in our last board meeting, we made a motion to pursue a steep grant, which town's authorized me to do. And we're going to be looking to place that against the Swift House versus a community house or something of that nature. We're looking at obviously town hall expansions, room and so on. And economy of space and scale of operations and so on. One of the things I've noticed just over the time, and I think a lot of us will have noticed, is our social services specifically seems to be chopped up a little bit more than necessary. Part of the issue is the way that the building is built here. People going approaching social service have to sit out in the hallway, and they're kind of in the middle of everyone else, and don't really have a place maybe to be on their own and be a little bit away from the rest of the public if we have an issue they want to discuss with their social services staff, which is excellent. So we looked at that. I also looked at the amount of effort and issues that's going on with our food bank in the bottom of the community house. It's an okay space. It's not a good space. It's not an up-to-date space. It meanders. If you've been in there, it's kind of a serpentine and kind of stuff showing up. So we need to kind of relook at that. And that was one of the things that we talked about. So in talking to the board and talking to the Swift House Task Force, trying to figure out exactly the right place, if that's the word, put it in the right place in a town that we think Swift House could be. And one of the issues that I always had trouble chomping on, I think like board kind of the same thing, is having it for Public use, non-municipal use is fine. You know, we want to be able to have it open for chamber of commerce, government clubs, organizations, maybe park and rec activities and so on. But if it's not continually used, then I'm afraid it's going to go down the same pathway it's been before, which is ignored a little bit, maybe, you know, a couple of bad days, bad storm miss, and we don't catch something in it. So really putting that together with how do we put something in that's continually used, and at least occupied pretty much full time. So sitting there one day and I kind of put it together, listening to the board, and I said, we moved social services in there. Actually gave them the opportunity to have an office, decent space, and then co-locating in the building on the first floor, up would be the first floor, would be the food bank. And so I did some quick adjustments with my non-architectural pencil and came up with an idea that might work. So I presented to the board, they liked that idea and so on. And I think it actually, again, integrates the building back into use, back to the town. It is our building. And I think with the expansion and the improvement to our social services, food bank and so on, that's a pretty good idea to go for. I'm pretty sure that steep grant, which now has gone up to a maximum of $1 million. Not sure we're going to go for $1 million in this one, but we would, you know, have our folks go in and take a look exactly what it would cost to bring it up with HVAC and so on in the building itself. But I think that's a good place for it to be with our affordable housing, with our senior housing right there. It's easy to get to senior centers right there. The staff would be available to actually be closer to the areas that they go to now, with less travel time, deliveries, everything else. Kind of really, you know, it's not, I thought about the idea, are we, you know, kind of putting it in one area, all of our social services in an area we don't care about. But I don't think that's the case. I think with our park and rec, with more activities going on Swift Lane, in Commons and so on, that still integrates into the town, but it just gives us a little bit economy of scale, economy of opportunity to kind of bring activities together in our senior center in Swift House and with our social services as well. So that was the decision. So we're going forward on that. We haven't gotten the actual steep announcement that the steep grant is open yet. That's kind of what we're waiting for. But in the meantime, we're looking at ways we can optimize it. So.
You first.
You had said that access for the use of clubs or whatever would be in that building too, but on the second floor?
No, it would be in the first floor. There's the main, remember that big main room?
Go on.
It's big enough, and there are other rooms that could be used there for book clubs. It could be used for chamber. Now we still have storage, so the chamber right now uses it for storage. This is the first start. I mean, it's not the end.
But the footprint of the building itself
Yeah.
can accommodate both the town hall staff plus some activities that are external.
Plus the food bank.
And the food bank on the side, I didn't bring the thing up. Yes, there is an area, and with some modifications and some outreach and so on, we think it get there. We're not.
Kitchen.
The kitchen, there's a small kitchenette. I don't think we need a full-size kitchen.
Space at the side though, except the kitchen.
Back room
Yeah.
that the garden club used for storage, right? That's what he's.
Walk up the stairs into the porch in the main room. Off to the left is a little kitchenette and then a hallway that actually goes down into a large room, which would be at this point looked at for the food bank. Off that, even though it needs some support around it, there's some issues we have to do with support. But I think we can do that. There's piers you can put in to support that. Would be there's a back. Two entrances to that back room. One would be a natural access to the actual food bank. The back side is another stairs that goes off to the back. That actually could be expanded out for a refrigeration / freezer room or store. And there's another storeroom on that first floor. It's a room where we put tables and chairs. Could be converted, just moving a doorway and close it off for a storage room for the food bank itself. Part of the backside where the chamber uses it, which if you're looking at the front door, is to the right next to the mobile station. Back in there, there's a very nice room, a decent sized room. That also had a storeroom in there that we were talking about, making a walkway through into the bigger room, the central room, and the large meeting room at the bottom. That area is also going to be used for storage of chairs, tables, and so on, things like that as well. So, and there's a back door, and security would be there for, you know, even though they would be on there, they would have like a ring doorbell kind of a thing to announce people in there. So there's a safety and security of the staff during the day and so on. And at night, that main room could be opened up. Everything would be locked up, you know, be secured like it is at the community house. nobody monkeys around with the food bank at this point. But there's potential for that, and we think we can do it with the steep grant. Most of us know how much it actually, there are some of our architectural studies have said to bring it all the way up to speed. But at this point, it brings it up, gets the building back into action. Brings up the HVAC systems, which is important to keep it climate controlled, both for heat as well as the cold. We think we can do that within that, close to that $500,000 range. And it's mostly right now just the estimate, but we're not moving a lot of walls. There'll be only one probably expansion maybe in the food bank room itself, and the rest would be modification, upgrades, painting, checking windows, things like that.
What about the community house?
Community house needs work. It certainly does as a town hall.
That's sitting empty. Isn't it the community house sitting empty,
Well,
except for the food bank?
It gets used, yeah, it gets used a lot though. We actually, we rent it out quite
A
a
lot of
bit.
weekends now.
Yeah, it's just a lot of weekends, just used for the Saving Howard's.
Right, but that's just upstairs. There's the whole downstairs.
Yeah, we'd like to renovate that itself, but that doesn't mean that we can't come back for another steep grant. That's the other side of it. How much do you go whole million on the Swift House? I don't think we need to do that. We then turn around and go back for a second chomp at the apple, so to speak, at the next year with another steep grant. We're only allowed one steep grant a year, and the recommendation of everybody that's worked with steep grants is you don't split it. You don't go out with two proposals for one town.
Yeah.
They'll just cut one out and then, so, yeah, but we've spent a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of work on what we do with the Swift House. We've had a lot of discussions and so this is a way at least to consider bringing that back into action again.
Did you do an inventory of all of the available meeting space in the town? Because you've got the community house, you've got two parish houses, you've got the library that's expanding, you've got town hall, and that's a lot of space, and we're a small town. Are we really are you thinking of a lot of revenue generation from it?
Not necessarily revenue generation from the Swift House. This is a community house, yes. It has a capability of holding bigger activities, bigger functions and so on. But if we do get those two rooms below, there's meeting rooms and other stuff. Plus there's the big kitchen. There's the big industrial kitchen in the community house, or commercial kitchen, I should say, industrial, commercial kitchen, which we don't have in any other facility. That does generate a lot. This past weekend, if you know Smitty's over in New Preston, they brought over kitchen staff and put together this, if anybody went to that event, it was phenomenal. Food itself was spectacular. I mean, it was more than anybody could eat. But, and we've seen other activities there, the nursery school, Ken Education Nursery School had a function there. We've had the Birds Night in January. We've had, March, there's been other activities there. There's weddings, there's all kinds of stuff.
So you feel that there's an excess of available meeting space.
Access? I think it's under you.
Let's get complaints on the other side of it, which is,
Yeah.
but I agree with you. I, one of the things that I had, of course, suggested was simply, and you just raised it, do we have the inventory of all of the available space so that we actually know? And that's something for planning and zoning, if they ever put on their planning hats, should be looking at, because we get lots of complaints, about it, and can you get an insurance and everything else, but if we don't have a master space plan, then it's kind of hard for us to figure that out.
So
And some of it is private, right? You talk about the parish houses, which are privately owned, as well as the library, right? Even though it's our town library, it designates and works on its own operations, same as the school board. But that school has a lot of ability and used to have a lot of activity there. Years ago, like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, religious education classes were held there during the week and so on. Now it's pretty much not, unless it's a PTO event or a school event, but there is a capability for that. And it's nice that library itself is a wonderful discussion and so on. It's just my opinion. I don't think having been there at the school board, I'd like to do more with the community. I think now here, I'd like to get some things there, but there's going to be a lot of room. But if you look around, there's a lot more activity, a lot of activities going on as well. And that would still be used as such in the main reading room.
What's the timing on this steep grant?
Generally, it's been it's open in July and you have to turn it in by August. We give you a third.
Thank you here.
September, late September.
So those monies might be here.
Well,
Yeah, it would be
That's
this
what-
fiscal year.
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah.
And then secondly, in terms of the planning, are there any requirements for disability access?
Yes, and that, as a municipal building regardless, that was what the Swift House Task Force initially looked at, is where can we put an ADA entrance and an upgraded bathroom for an ADA? So that would be all
Part of this.
have to be. And any steep grant is state wage, you know, it's not interpreted or, you know, interpreted, we can find it as the lowest bidder. It's all.
And in terms of capital budgets, so that, how does this impact, or Robert, maybe the capital budget? Had we already provided for Swift House in that, and this is another source of revenue coming into the capital budget?
There is some potential revenue, again.
Am I just how we account for?
You're talking about, okay, so yeah, the capital plan, there is some upgrades in the capital, in the 5-year capital plan.
Right.
As well, that could be modified as we look at the steep grant takes over some of that would relieve some pressure potentially there. Again, I did look at, you know, ongoing costs, but we do have ongoing costs to maintain that building anyway. You know, just to make sure it's up to speed, but again, cleaning that up, putting some, you know, economical and ecological improvements there to keep it from falling apart would be more important, I think, to the town as well overall. And it's a chance to look at, you know, something like that. It's been worked. The state historical preservation office has looked at it to just get it onto the state rules. They've also recommended ways in which we get onto the federal, you know, the national historical. So that's being pursued concurrently. There's restrictions on that, but generally it's on the, you know, you can't tear it apart inside and make it a disco, right? Kind of deal. But the outside is more, you know, the traditional preservation piece to it. But there's a lot of it that we've looked at. We've had the teams in looking at it already this past year.
So this, oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. My concern is parking,
Right. So,
because I have 2 hats here, so.
One of the things I kind of mentioned to the board, but I haven't really gotten into it a lot because I'm still talking to the fire department, is the breakout lot, that gravel lot next to it across the street. I have talked to Rick about Public Works access into that. Is finding a way in meeting with Maria Horn tomorrow. And one of the things on that is to, as I'm looking at who's getting what funding, there's a lot of municipal parking areas that are going in that have EV associated to it or others as an upgrade. That's a beautiful area. It's a breakout for the fire department, but there's no reason it couldn't be a concurrent municipal parking lot breakout area. Always available for the fire department to clean out anytime they needed it. But even with, you know, the current responses they've had for the storms and so on, they've not used the whole thing, but right across the street, having a crosswalk into both Templeton and into the Swift House would be there. Having a pull-in parking off Swift Lane, we wouldn't be affecting with the new sidewalks at all. That would be off Swift Lane to pull into that parking area. So that's something I really want to pursue is providing that there. Plus that brings in a short walk to the commons. It gives a little pressure off the parking in at the commons for the Park and Rec, which is that dirt road right below the tennis courts, you know, which does, you know, kind of get messy there at times. And I think that's something that we can do concurrent to this, and maybe something I wouldn't necessarily include it in there. I think it's 2 separate things, but there are other ways we can pursue that as well. There's grants and support for the state to do that. And so it's stacking everything together, but that's something I can certainly see. And it takes a little pressure off Main Street. If people park there and walk around, walk into the barns, remember there's going to be a walk across 341 that's supposed to have one of those blinking signs that says, you know, stop when they crosswalk, which is what we need as well. My view, the first one that goes in with the state, then I can petition to put other blinking lights, other kind of crosswalks. I don't think we're ever going to fix the in front of Giffords or Swift people or Webster or Wilson walking across. That's just people that do that. But so far it's been okay. You know, we haven't hurt anybody, but still getting people to slow down. We have the speed, the reduction in the speed that the Traffic Safety Committee came up with and the state approved. We have a great state trooper, resident trooper that's taking the time to actually slow people down and issue tickets and let the people know that it's time to slow down. It's helping a little bit. It's again stacking all these things up. But parking, yeah, it's a concern, and I'd like to see that'll actually open up. There's room for that, and access for the town as well as the fire department.
Other question too. So will this grant be used in lieu of the capital funding that's currently in the?
If we can. Yeah, that's what I mentioned. If we can match the intent of the capital, we might be able to take some pressure off that capital as well. we know we should do that. I'm thinking about that this coming year already, what's gonna be in the plan, what we need to focus on. It may be, for our recommendation, I have to get with the board on this, but I think we all agree, we need to look at some of our spending, especially in the capital as
Anybody else
well.
have any questions, comments? Got anything else for us?
That's a big thing,
Okay.
we're all. The boss here has got the rest of the numbers and close it.
Yep. So, yeah, you would be on, Deb.
Well, do you want to do number 7 first, and that way I can do mine and the budget first and the.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay, I'll talk about it for a moment. So, Casey, you had requested, kind of an assessment 101, for us. And I've been in touch with the assessor, so we're getting that set up and squared away, and, it looks like she'll probably be able to join us in September. I'll firm that up between now and then.
So if we have any specific questions ahead of time that we'd like.
Just shoot them
addressed,
over,
just
yeah,
as you-
send them over to me and I'll collect them all and get them to her.
Okay.
That it?
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
So I don't have my regular report. I sort of was a little short on time. So I just printed out a report out of my program that you can have. This first one is actual versus budget so far as of today for last year. At this point, we're still at a nice healthy surplus. However, there are outstanding invoices that have not yet been received. And I'll go with that. Let's just. Twice. That's the budget transfers, and this is the non-lapsing fund that y'all created for the Board of Ed, for the ASO, it shows the status of what. So that is just yes. I know that there is a large paving invoice that Rick was trying to get this afternoon, that is still outstanding that I don't have. So. That's gonna gobble. And at this point, we haven't used any of the 700,000 that was appropriated, but I don't think that's gonna be where we end up. I only have one left, we all have to share it. You can each have a budget trip to the west. Or maybe Ryan will be first. But anyway. I don't know how many to make. So this is right out of my data set. The far left column is the actuals, and I rolled up each department just so that you could see the totals. The middle column is the budget, and the far right column where it says over budget, if it has a negative figure in that column, that's the surplus for that department. If it has a positive number, that department is over. So the first line is income, and we've basically posted all the income for last year at this point. But as we talk about every year, the auditor always has a 90-day adjustment that they do for tax collections where they move money back and forth. So that number will fluctuate a little bit. Each department in general for the Board of Selectmen's budget came in under budget. Different reasons for some of it I know, some of it I don't, without looking a little deeper. I know for the Board of Selectmen, the previous first select person was budgeted for health insurance. And then Marty didn't take health insurance through the end of the year, so that's pretty much why there's a surplus there. You go all the way down to associations. That's over budget because that's where the paramedic line is, and we knew all along during the year that that wasn't budgeted appropriately, so that is one of the budget transfers that we're requiring tonight. And in addition, in that grouping of associations, there's also the Lake Warlog bill that we get, and we haven't gotten the final bill yet for the end of the year, but there's still money in that line for that final invoice. We have a pretty nice surplus in the insurance line 075000 that's 2 lines below that. And that's basically because the previous budget, 24, there was an amount included in there for cyber insurance security that we never got. We never followed through and got that.
So we didn't have cyber insurance?
Not official cyber insurance, no.
We're in the process of applying for a cybersecurity grant that would include a initial cybersecurity insurance program. So writing that up, so.
Cyber insurance is a little bit difficult to get.
Yes, it is.
They make you jump through a lot of hoops.
And you toe in the door, yeah.
Yeah, Jean had started the process and then she got focused on other things, and so she didn't really finish it out before she left, so it was in the budget and there was no way to.
Part of the issue is we have very few cybersecurity, we have very few cybersecurity programs in place as the town. So you can't get insurance on
They
something.
require, yeah, they've got minimum requirements.
Right,
Yeah.
but, and so, yeah, and so we've talked to the state and so on about that. Until we get some programs going, till we put in this, we start instituting some, two security logins, all the kind of stuff we need to do, data trackers and so on. Without having any of that from our town in there, there's nothing to insure, actually. Insurance won't.
Yeah.
And without the cyber insurance, how much had we budgeted for that,
Cyber insurance?
Yeah.
I think it was $30,000.
So basically, without that, it's basically flat to year before without.
Yes, I mean.
Which isn't bad, given that property casualty insurance has been going recently.
Right, well, every year workers' comp goes up a little bit and so does our liability auto. So.
Could you explain how the EMS aspect of associations relates to the EMS staffing down
They're two
below?
different things. Paramedic is a separate, well, maybe Bonnie should explain that. Why doesn't Bonnie explain that? What's the difference between paramedic and EMS, please?
So I'm guessing that the EMS staffing are the EMTs that the fire department hires to cover shifts. And the paramedic program is a regional paramedic that comes in on advanced life support calls. So it's two separate things. It's not staff.
Paramedic is in the associations?
Yes, because it's a straight out grant that we do.
That's the one that New Milford Hospital is. Thank you.
And as you can see, EMS staffing is currently over budget, and just yesterday I got 2 invoices from the fire department. And I think there's still one more after that, and the 2 I got yesterday aren't even in here, so I based the budget transfer request amount on what I think it's gonna end up being in the end.
It's good.
And then the next page, you can see is highway department. And as I said, Rick is trying to secure that paving invoice that he has outstanding. So I think that will probably use up the rest of his budget.
Now we'll gobble up a lot of that.
Yeah. Social services and senior center, welcome center, those are all okay. Park and rec is okay. Community house went a little bit over on the maintenance and repairs. There was some refrigeration repairs going on. He's bought a new walk-in or reach-in freezer and updated some signage over there as well. And there's gonna a little bit of a budget transfer for legal services because we have that litigation with High Watch that's now at the Supreme Court level. Or whatever it is. Court level is. And then the Board of Ed has quite a surplus at this point, and I'm pretty sure we're at 98% done with posting all of their activity. I think their surplus in large part is due to the ARP ESSER grants that they got during the year.
Did they use that to supplant their budget?
I don't know what knowledge they had when they created the budget 2 years ago for it, but they didn't give me that information so that I can put it in as a revenue and offset it. So they put in all the expenditure, but they didn't offset it in any, so. They had $52,000 in ARP ESSER. And then they also put the SRO cost in there, even though that ended up getting siphoned off to. Yeah.
Is the lapsing fund out of the DOE budget, however?
No.
No,
Because it had already gone into that, that's right, that's right.
That was the year. before.
That's right.
So this presentation that I gave you on the third page where it says transfer out for town meeting, that 257,143 is the first appropriation to offset the streetscape expense. So that came right out of this year's budget. And then the other transfer out, the 62,000, that was the LoCIP money that we had talked about earlier, that they changed the process of the way that they handled that at the state level, so we had to change our process a little bit.
Which one was this?
The 62,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we are with the budget versus actual, and it's still showing that right now we have $169,000 surplus, but I don't expect that. And that's using none of the 700,000 that was appropriated. I don't expect that to stay.
Or its last two.
That's correct. I think during the year, I was anticipating that we would use about 250 or 300 of that 700. And I'm still basically hovering around those numbers. So the next thing I gave you was the budget transfers. The very first one, I think you guys already approved that. That was the country recognized for that way back. So that one's already been approved. So you're really only approving number 2 through 5. And that total for those 4 is 111,000. And so the left-hand column, it shows you where I'm proposing to take the excess funding from and bring it over to the right to offset the needy column on the right. So it's paramedic, EMS staffing, community house repairs and litigation. That's Supreme Court level. Then the other document I gave you was the ASO funding. This is the non-lapsing fund. It shows the appropriation last year, 7,000, and all the different expenses that they submitted during the year to post against it. The way they did it is they paid the ASO, well, I don't think they hired the ASO until, was it December? They didn't hire him at the beginning of the year. So that cost for the ASO, is only half a year. But they paid them through their regular budget, and then Reed gave me a journal entry last week to post it over to here.
So this is just, so. I'm just confused as to what all these costs are. I mean, how did they relate?
CPAS is uniforms.
Yes.
WB makes.
The radios.
Yeah, Data Hall was, he has the security cameras and TVs in the office where you can look at all that.
Okay.
Amazon, I think, was just little officey supply things that he needed. I'm not sure who John Bolinas is, but it says ASO evaluation, so it might have been some sort of
Is
a.
it? Yeah.
He's a psychiatrist.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's.
Evaluation should have been a good one. That was the legal
That's
counsel.
first ballot, okay.
Warcom. I don't know what that is, but-
So what happens with the 16,000?
Well, it's in a non-lapsing fund. It
Yeah.
just sits there until.
Actually, that dovetails into the second new business item.
Right, because they changed, the state laws now changed.
Right.
So in the past, the Board of Education would have to formally decide that they wanted to ask for 2% to be transferred over. They would come to you and ask for that. Well, the laws changed now. They don't need to get permission anymore. They can just decide on their own and then instruct me to do it.
And that pertains to the current budget year.
Correct, it starts this year.
So, but the non-lapsing fund that we created, that you wrote very carefully, said that it was done at the end of the fiscal year.
Well, you did, but that sort of contradicts itself. You can't have a non-lapsing fund that lapses after a year, so I don't know how to sort that out. I don't know. Right.
If it has dollars in it and they have a huge surplus.
Yeah.
So I'm inclined to say, no,
Yeah.
that ship has sailed.
And that was the one.
We did, so we said it one
I'm
time.
not sure. Yeah, I would have to ask the auditor how to handle that, because like I said, that you, to have a non-lapsing fund that lapses in a year doesn't report, so I don't know how that gets.
So what you're saying, I mean, that's $16,000, which is fine, but this year there's 300,000.
They can only take up to 2% of it, which is 149,000 and change.
2% of their total.
2% of the budget,
Budget, yeah.
they have to have that much in surplus, they can take up to 2%.
But can they take that from this or only starting next year?
They would take it from this, but they haven't indicated to me yet whether they're gonna exercise that right or not.
Because I think
My
in the,
understanding from the statute is that it's automatic. That up to 2% of the annual budget. My question, because this is a regional budget, is it 2% of just the local piece, or is it 2% of the whole enchilada, the three components?
It's 2% of their whole budget,
Okay.
because they have the right to spend whatever comes back from the high school as part of their own budget, that's their budget. But I don't think it's automatic in the sense that if they don't want the 2%, they don't have to exercise that right. They have an option to take it.
No, but I didn't think the language said that. My
This is why
interpretation of
they
the
are
language is
compelled
clear.
to take it if they don't want it. It's gotta be optional. There's no way that they're gonna compel them to take it if they don't want it.
That's not my understanding, yeah.
I'll go back to.
but when we approved the non-lapsing fund, it was under the assumption that they would incorporate going forward into
Yes.
their
Correct.
operating budget.
And they did,
Right.
and they did.
But leaving aside the fact that we did the non-lapsing fund, which we thought could lapse. I don't.
Yeah.
Leaving that aside, if they automatically were to get the 2%
Mhm.
out of this, 304 that's we would obviously need to say, okay, that's part of your, when you come to us with your budget.
Right, we'll be taking
So
that.
that is a line item that you've already.
That
It tells us that they had a lot of money.
Right,
That's right.
And they didn't need to budget as much. Yeah.
right.
Right, if we want to keep, if we want to keep the control on the purse strings, given the.
Well, summer job.
Not just that, and
I gotta
frankly,
keep the mill rate.
having just gone through this year,
Yes.
one of the things frankly we're gonna have to do is take a closer look
Well, wait a minute.
at how creative, what.
Go back to the second page and look at the three components. 70,000 of that 304 is actually coming back from the high school. And that's a year in arrears because of their audit.
I'm sorry?
When you look at the Board of Education piece,
Yes, yep.
70,000 of the 304 is actually coming back from region.
Right.
Right.
So that's nothing that they budgeted or didn't budget. That's not, they don't have any control over
Right.
That's right.
that really. So you really need to take that off the 304 to see what the local budget surplus is.
Right.
Well, that was my question. So if the total Board of Ed budget is the 7 million two,
That's what they can take the 2% on.
the 2% on that.
Yeah. But
So long as
when you
there's.
were having the discussion about 304 being a large surplus that they over budgeted, you have to really consider.
It's really 2/3. Yeah, it's really 2/3.
They don't have any-
But if they were on budget, they wouldn't have anything to take the 2%.
Yeah, it's hard to budget that close to it.
Right.
Anyway.
Where I'm working. Last year I had a $17 balance at the end of the year.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Just like-
So anyway, I thought before I could ask for budget transfers, I at least had to give you some indication of what this year's budget looks like, so that's what that is.
Yeah, so my inclination is, and we can verify that statute language.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Sam. I just can't imagine, it's just my own personal opinion that it can be compulsory. I mean,
Right.
I just.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I guess if the notion is that the non-lapsing fund should lapse, then that 16,000 should come back into general funds.
Right.
Exactly.
If it can't lapse, then that 16,000 should go to as a line item
Yes.
they already have for the next year's
But
budget.
it can't, it's not appropriate for that new statute to be applied retroactively
Right.
because that was last fiscal year.
They're two different things, but I'll ask the auditor how to
Yeah.
handle the 16,000. What our rights are, what, you know. we're supposed to do.
I mean, because that was all set up when the rule was that you had to go to the fiscal authority in your community, you know, and say, Mother, may I,
Right.
have the money. So,
And if they're not coming back, which they're not, then that goes to the general fund.
Yeah.
but the way that the document was written
Right,
was that, this is one and done kind of thing.
that's it.
So, but the non-lapsing fund, I'm sure will continue,
I would assume.
depending on what
They would
you
exercise their right, because that makes a
give them a
convenient
cushion.
cushion for HVAC and, big items like that that happen expected, but I don't know.
Do you remember what the request I made when I was on the chair for the 25,000 a year for non-lapsing up to 100,000, then return everything after that? It's precluded this, but that's been, this is not.
So I'll reach out to both the auditor and Sam and try to get a little bit of clarification on both of those items.
Yeah, I think I have the actual language in the office.
Uh-huh.
If I pull it out, I'll send it.
I do too, actually.
Oh.
And I read it, but I didn't read it the way you did, so.
Yeah, this was that, but it had been digested by CAVE and some other entities. There was a document put out, yeah. So,
Going back to a different issue, what is the iWatch lawsuit that's still going on? I thought we had settled with them in terms of.
We did, this is the lawsuit planning and zoning over their greenhouse. Their establishment of a separate building on a unimproved property, that's part of an old farm, and the use is different, and there's zoning regulations here that prohibit that generally, but may or may not have been applied appropriately across, or maybe it was very narrowly focused, but, so initially we denied it. They asked for an appeal. They lost. They went to the second appeal, the Court of Appeals. Highwatch won, did state it. We, the town has, through planning and zoning, appealed that to the Supreme Court for a final decision. And the Supreme Court accepted that. That's why we're scrambling to.
They've accepted the case.
Accepted the case, correct. And the filing was, I think Monday, was the filing from Highwatch. They had to file on that day. So, but just to throw in here a little bit, I did meet with the Derek Tranzillo, who's the chief financial officer, and he handed over his first check of the pilot payment to the penny. As well, so that's the report. And it so has South Kent School is also ponied up there, unfortunately.
right.
Also, I know I stole that from her.
It's okay.
But anyway, but yeah, it was nice. It actually, went had lunch, we talked about different things, then he handed me the check.
Right.
I took it quickly.
Yeah.
Made sure it's still had it. It was delayed. No, it was very cordial, very social, very nice.
He's a very nice guy.
And Derek is very nice and still wants to work. I haven't met the new CEO they have up there. I did walk by him one time and forgot, and he didn't know who I was. I didn't know he was. I understand he and his wife up there busy keeping things kind of even keel, so that's good. Good neighbors, I guess, overall. Bonnie sees them all the time.
So that's all I really have at this point.
So we need a motion to
To approve the four
approve
additional.
the budget transfers.
You do it as one motion.
3.5.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Comments from the public? Comments from the public? Nothing from the public, okay, adjourned. All right.
Go back and sit in front of the air.
Well, we'll see, if something comes up.